Hello, welcome to Steadfast Life Consulting. My name is Jill Medina Elizalde, and this is our interview series on relationship. Today, my special guest is Geoff Laughton. He's a relationship architect, a master builder. He has earned his high marks through transforming countless lives for the better. He also earned rave reviews on Amazon for his best-selling books, Built to Last and Building a Conflict-Proof Relationship. And Geoff also happens to be my mentor and my friend for over 25 years. So welcome, Geoff. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So I wanted to start off this conversation with some context about our relationship, or my relationship with you, Geoff. And in many years ago, I'll try to make the story short, but I think it's an important background. I was in my early 20s and I was struggling with very large emotions. They were kind of overtaking my life, and it was mostly sadness and anger. It was a good mix of both. And it got to the point where I felt like I could no longer see, like I was living in darkness, and it felt like there was darkness within and without. And basically, essentially, I was scared of the world because I had made this transition from young girl to young adult. And I didn't know how to make sense of the information that I was receiving from the world. And frankly, a lot of it was shocking for me. And as you know, I grew up in this kind of country girl bubble. And once that bubble exploded, the world came in, and I really didn't know what to do with it, living in a lot of fear. And also friends at this time, they were far and few between. They were like buoys in the ocean. I would hold on to them, but then of course it gets too heavy and they go away when the storms are rough. And that's where you enter, Geoff, my hero. So you enter the scene and you are unaffected by my gloomy state of being. And I just got goosebumps even saying this, but this is the part where you reached down into my soul and you put your hand out and you said to me, it's time to get your big girl boots on and get up out of that hole you're living in. And, honestly, it took me a while to get those boots on. I couldn't quite get them on, but I have them on now. I've been wearing them ever since I was able to do it. And so, Geoff, you've contributed so much to my well-being in such a profound and essential way. And I've seen the impact of your work on the people around me, the transformation that takes place. And the one moment that really sticks out for me is when I referred someone to you. I said, watch out, this person has a lot of anger. And, I didn't want you to I thought, oh, they'll explode at you at any time. And immediately you said, in your like Obi-Wan Kenobi style, you said, I eat darkness for breakfast. And
Did I really say that?
yes, and I have lived by that. Just every time I think of it, it lights me up. I'm like, that is so true. And it just means that you've got this, and you do. So with that in mind, I want to know, how do you come about that quality of eating darkness for breakfast? How did you do that?
What a great question. Well, I think probably one of the biggest avenues to really developing that ability was growing up in a lot of darkness. I grew up in a family where, on my mother's side of the family, there was a lot of alcoholism, depression, if not maybe even manic depression or bipolar as it's known now. Single mom. She and my dad got divorced when I was about a year old. And so growing up with a single parent and having that parent be, saddled with a lot of depression and I kind of had to grow up way too fast.
Mm-hmm.
And in the course of that, having to deal with a lot of conflict between my mom and her mom, because my grandmother was really the safest haven for me as a kid. She saw me, she totally got who I was, even as a boy, and would often, try and give me literally shelter from the storm. And her relationship with my mom was very, very difficult. And, kind of the thing of the worst thing you could say to somebody is, you're just like your mother. Only in the case of my mom and her mom, she was just like her mother. So there was a lot of, this is not the ideal by any stretch, but there was a great deal of navigating two people that I loved, one that I felt safe with, one that I didn't, and having a younger sister that I was the older brother to. And just all the darkness of the addiction, the mental illness, and then also having been born with a birth defect and a speech defect. From the time I was in nursery school up until about my sophomore year in high school, I just got teased and bullied and humiliated pretty much on a daily basis. And at the time, it sucked. I can look back on it now, and per your question, all that helped me build resilience. It helped me become somebody that wasn't afraid of my emotions. So if you're going to eat darkness for breakfast, I can't believe I said that. I was really ballsy for where I was at that time in my maturity. But anyway, having to deal with so much pain, confusion, having to get self-reliant in a lot of ways at an age where children aren't supposed to have to do that. What I can see in hindsight is it toughened me up in a good way. And it also made me comfortable. Like, what I do remember from the first time you did the workshop with me, what I really meant by I eat darkness for breakfast is, whatever you are feeling and whatever shit you felt you needed to bring, it couldn't be any worse than any of what I had experienced. That was my attitude at the time. So, okay, let's go there. And, the other thing behind it is having an enormous amount of compassion and empathy for what it feels like to be confused, alone, feeling neglected or abandoned. The conflict that children inherently feel with, I love my parent or parents, and they're hurting me in some way.
Yeah.
And a kid doesn't know how to navigate that. So it just became something that I wanted to do, which was help people overcome that. And you can't have the light that we all want to grow into more. We don't get that without having to own the darkness. And that includes our own wounds, our own shadows. If you're not willing to look at that, you could maybe finesse yourself into seeming like and coming off like a really self-actualized person, and it's bullshit. It's all smoke and mirrors if you don't deal with the wounds in one way, shape, or form.
I love that you drew from your life experience, and to keep going with the metaphor of Star Wars, I saw you as your own Luke Skywalker, battling this dark and light, and you
Yeah.
walked the path before me, and so I must have been a piece of cake by the time you saw me. Yes, that's beautiful, Geoff. So um, I wanted to shift to my next question. I'm going to keep rolling. Um, I noticed that you actually have behind you, it has to do with what you have behind you on your wall. There are two boats there
Hmm.
and ships in the background. And I was looking at the word relationship, and I suddenly noticed for this interview series, I noticed the word ship in there, and I
Hmm.
thought, what's that doing in there? So I looked it up, and of course, relationship. I got the meaning of the way in which two or more are connected. So there's an emphasis, I would think, on connection and relationship. And
Hmm.
then I looked up the word ship that's added on to citizenship, kinship, relationship. And
Hmm.
ship has this, that definition is an act or a power or a skill or quality and condition. And then I thought about you, and I thought, I think that you're paying attention to the quality and condition of relationships. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to ask you, what do you think are some of the signs of a healthy relationship?
Well, firstly, that you really, more often than not, you really enjoy being together. Like you want to be together, not every waking moment, not all the time, not at the expense of having, fully fleshed out lives that don't depend on the relationship for your soul sustenance and well being, but that you really just enjoy hanging together, um, that you're both willing and able to communicate the hard stuff,
Hmm.
that you're willing to get really raw and naked with each other in the metaphorical sense. The literal sense is also important, sex has to be good or great. But that you're willing to develop a level of trust with each other where you're willing to let each other see everything, especially your fallibility, your moments where you feel scared or you feel weak in some way.
Hmm.
Um, but that essentially the quality of friendship that you have and the level of, I'll go off your ship piece, the level of soulship you have with each other.
Mm, yeah.
And one way that I can say I know that shows up for me with my wife Sarah is we talk, but we don't have to talk to feel connected. That there's just a level of peacefulness and joy
Yeah.
that can be there just being in the same room together. And that's as true now. This is our 39th year together. And that's just as true now as when I was, a young schmuck, goo goo in love with this amazing woman. Um, and
Yep.
then I think the other thing that marks a healthy relationship is how you both relate to and deal with adversity and struggle and conflict. Healthy relationship is one that doesn't veer away from conflict.
Geoff, I was going to say you're built to last. The first part that you were just talking about, it's reflected in your book, Built to Last, like being comfortable with all the feelings, whatever they are, regardless. And that's kind of a breakthrough, because we all have this idea that it should be this idealized version once you're with someone, that
Yeah.
it should remain in this happy place and everything is has to be perfect, or it's not a good relationship, which is, you busted that myth. And then the second part that you're just talking about now, in building a conflict-proof relationship. Go into that a little bit more. I'm sorry I interrupted you. I'm excited about that part of it too. Like, what do you mean by building a conflict-proof relationship?
And you can interrupt any time. It's your show, homegirl.
Gonna do it. Yeah.
You can do whatever the hell you want.
All right. All right, keep going.
So what I mean, when I thought of the title of that book, you know, a lot of people that I've worked with have thought conflict was a bad sign. And, you know, if they could have their ideal situation, some people would say, well, I don't ever want to fight. I don't want to ever have conflict. And, you know, it would, and like you were just alluding to a minute ago, the belief is that conflict is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And the conflict means something's wrong.
Yes.
And so
when
I knew I wanted to write a book about conflict specifically, I'd run into people that wanted it to be conflict free. My position is, if you don't have conflict in your relationship, it's doomed to fail. Whether you stay in it or not. You know, my parents were together for 50 years and they hated each other for 49 of them. So if you're going to have a really conscious, wonderful relationship, you have to learn how to include conflict, lean into it, learn how to do it really well. And that was why conflict proof. That if you know how to do conflict in a really skillful way, it's going to make you stronger.
Yes.
It certainly ends up being a vehicle for clarity. Because sometimes people hire me to help them out because they have a lot of conflict. And once I can help them see how conflict can be valuable, and that it's indicative of stuff that isn't being addressed, that probably hasn't been addressed for God knows how long, that it gives the relationship an opportunity to be renewed, reinvented, reborn, if you will, or to recognize that it's been dead for years and that it's time to move on.
It's a life changer either way. I mean, it's a wake up call, and it's still, I think it's a very brave stance. And I feel that you have always been a champion for that, for people to stand up and face the reality and stay away from making things up, and really just look at what there is and see how to get through it. And so, yeah, I applaud you on your efforts for that, and putting it in book form is brilliant. It's brilliant. So right now, we're going to take a quick pause. We'll be right back. We are back with Geoff Laughton, relationship architect. Jeffrey, I wanted to ask you, I don't know if anyone else calls you Jeffrey, but I do.
Only my mom, and she's dead, so I guess you're the successor.
Yes. But yes, I do it in a very mom-like way, Jeffrey. Um, all right, back to business. I wanted to know about the future. I know you don't have a crystal ball right there. Maybe you do. I'm looking, I don't see one. I want to know what do you think it would look like 10 years down the road, the evolution of relationships, the life of relationships, the way things are going now. I'm sure you have kind of an assessment of relationships between people, different types of couples. But do you have any kind of predictions about what relationships will look like in the future? Have you ever thought about anything like that, or thoughts?
I haven't. And I think it's a really, really great question. I think I actually believe, now that you're raising the question, that the potential is for relationships to get more and more healthy. And I think this is part of why I do the work that I do, because, if I look at where relationships were 20, 30 years ago, or what they were like when I was growing up 50 and 60 years ago, they're much more, at least the ones I'm exposed to. I'm clear there are probably plenty out there in different parts of the country that may be more like they used to be. But in terms of the people that I tend to work with and hang out with, there's definitely a drive to do a better job of designing the relationship in a way that really nurtures the sovereignty of each person, each partner, and for people with kids, wanting to nurture that for their kids. And so I imagine, especially with all of the stuff that's been coming up in the last year of the pandemic, and all the racial issues that have come up, and Me Too, and the level of hate and divisiveness that is happening, not just in our country, it's happening all over the world.
Yeah.
And our country just seems bigger to me because it's my country.
Our country being the U.S. Yes.
Yes, thank you. I think that the possibility for the future is consciously cultivating relationship as both something to bring love and joy and growth, because relationships aren't supposed to be fun and warm and fuzzy all the time. That's a stupid, ridiculous stereotype. They're supposed to be an organism that is both the sum of two parts, but also that sum creates possibilities for each of the part in the tangential avenues of life. So I think with the need to wake up and get more conscious as a human being, and more conscious about the fact that connection and I don't know why I'm having a reaction to this word, but I'll use it. Getting connected, unified, harmonized is the only prayer we have to get, in my opinion, it's the only prayer we have to solve any of the issues that our world is dealing with, from climate to hate to, people being able to live a good life without, being in the street or the gutter. It all depends on really the whole world finding pathways to remember, we're all really one. And how do we live together and love relationships? I see continuing to be the playground, or the testing ground, actually. That's going to be the testing ground about how do you deal with differences, and especially when you love someone. How do you accept people for their quirks or their idiosyncrasies, the things that, I drive my wife absolutely batshit crazy in the areas that I do, and she drives me nuts where she does. And we adore each other in spite of, or because of that, because it has never been an option to go, well, you're just too weird or a pain in the butt. We look for, how do we find common ground? And that includes learning how to decide what hill you want to die on. Am I going to throw a relationship away because she likes Fallon and I like Letterman? The petty stuff that couples get really wrenched up about. And I hope that the future of relationship includes everything I just said, and however people are going to get to that helps the children of today and those to come to have a better shot at making a better world of things than my generation has and all the generations before us.
Yes, Geoff, it brought up for me some curiosity about if this was connected to your recent work, where you have told me that you're focusing on working with men. So I wondered if this was connected to that because of the time period, or what is it that's bringing you towards wanting to work with men in particular?
Well, if I'm really being honest, and why not? So I've been working with men for 21 years now. And I can tell you what initially got me interested and what has me interested now, because it's evolved a bit. When I first, I was raised by women. And my mom, my grandmother, probably 90% of my teachers up until high school were women. We even had a dog that was a girl. So I'm this guy growing up in this environment that's, really all female dominated. And whenever, when my mom got divorced, the men that she tended to date when I was growing up were really representative of the worst of men. And so by the time that I was in college, I didn't like men. I looked at men and felt men to be threats. The people that teased and bullied me were male. So I did not have a great relationship with maleness or masculinity. I didn't really know what masculine energy, I didn't know my form of it, because I was all heart. When you met me, I was living most of the time in my feminine energy, and women really love that. But by the same token, before I got married, when I was dating or going out with people in high school, the girls always wanted the bad boy. And I remember thinking, what the fuck? I don't understand that. And what I realize now is that what they want is a healthy masculine energy in a male, because it not only is sexy and appealing, but more importantly, it helps them feel safe, psychically safe. And so I got into a men's weekend 21 years ago, and I have a son. And so I was a father to a boy who wanted to learn how to be a man, and I didn't feel like I knew how to be a man. I didn't feel like a man. And so I went to this weekend to kind of break the spell of my aversion to men and masculinity. And in that weekend, I found out, like, wow, there are incredible men out there, because I spent a whole weekend with about 60 of them, every walk of life from 20 to 80. And I was 42 when I did this, and our son Mark was 13, really needing, what a father could bring. And I was so blown away by seeing all the enormous different ranges of men and masculine energy that was not without the feminine in their heart. I mean, these men, deep, deep, deep hearted men, and every single one of us extraordinarily wounded, like every other human being. Whether you're a man or a woman, we're all walking around with wounds. So I just realized that I felt alive in that energy. I felt alive with those men. I wanted more of that. I wanted to, uncover more of my, like, what is it about Geoff Laughton as a man, a mature man, that is just wonderful to embody. And, you've heard the expression, people teach what they need to learn. So for a time, it was like, yeah, I'm all in. I want to hang out with men. I'm going to learn, and I'm probably going to figure out, who am I someday? What is my flavor of maleness and masculinity? And over the years, working with a lot of men in a few different settings and contexts, I discovered who this guy is. And I wanted to, same reason I do relationship work. I know what helped me come alive again. And I want to help other people come alive again. And now, with the real passion I have around working with men is, again, when we just look at my opinion, my choice of word, the shit show that the world is right now, women aren't going to save the day. Men alone are not going to save the day. Men and women are going to save the day. The world needs us all to do whatever we can do, whether it's a small local thing or some big thing. We have to learn to work together, and love and relationship, whether it's romantic love or platonic love with friends, connection is the engine that has a prayer of being able to turn things around. And I'm not being airy-fairy about the importance of sociocultural things, politics, blah, blah, blah. That's all part of it. But what we're living in now is the direct result of us getting farther and farther apart. just as people. I'm not talking what side of the political spectrum you're on. Just we've gotten disconnected as people, as a civilization. So I want men to be able to feel empowered to make the difference that they want to make in the world, in their life. I want them to be empowered to be better fathers than, my generations of fathers or yours. Mm-hmm. And again, to help the future, we're going to have to know how to raise children now that can grow into being the hope of the future. And a lot of men don't know, they don't know what they want to be when they grow up, even in their 40s. A lot of them don't have access to their emotions. So they're going around doing their life all head. And that isn't going to work. It doesn't work. I know. I did it for years. So Geoff, I'm in it because at this stage of my life, I'm in the last act of my life. So, I did a lot of other stuff I wanted to do. And I really just believe that with whatever time I got left, I want to be able to help the future have a better chance. And I want the children of the future to have a better chance. So that means that I need to help the men become more conscious, and then in the couples work, help teach men and women how to work together more effectively instead of being in so much strife that at one level begins because women think we should think like you do, and we wonder why you don't think like we do.
I was going to lead into also talking about women, but first I want to just acknowledge what I got out of all of that just now was that, again, I love how when there's, like you started off with adversity, in your life, how instead of going away from it time and again, you're turning towards it. And not only are you turning towards it, you're going into it, you're discovering what it's like going into the mining cave, and you've gone in there mining and you've brought out all these beautiful gems because you've worked very hard to get those gems and all the work that you've done and captured it on your one-on-ones and, with different people, you share those gems. And I really want to thank you for your bravery in doing that. And, I think a lot of what you said, women can also take from that. And I also want to make it even broader. People, there's some people are considered they, and regardless of men or women, it's just people, individuals, what we can do I think it's like, I liked when you talked about how the society is really separated from each other and how now can we come together to harmonize. So, and it's not going to be like a piece of cake, that you're not saying that it's going to be easy. We've got to look at things in a realistic way. So, what is something that you would say to an individual that just maybe just to end this one segment, what would you say to an individual who doesn't have this kind of hope about the future, and how do they go about harmony? What would be the first step that they could take to go towards harmony and reconnection? And I see that your screen's a little blurry. I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
But maybe there we go. That's it. Okay. So our technical difficulties solved. But yeah, what do you think? What would you say to that person?
Step one is getting in harmony with your authenticity. You can't, you're not going to be able to contribute to a better relationship or a better career, better community, whatever that might be for somebody, unless you know who you are. And to one degree or another, everyone's walking around with an identity that they have about who they are that more often than not bears little to no resemblance to who you actually are. Most of
What
us are
do you
walking
hide?
around we're walking around being how we were trained to behave. And, little kids, as you know, being the mother of one, little kids, they don't get up every morning wondering if they're a good enough kid. If anything, they wake up wondering if you're a good enough mom or dad for them. They're fine with who they are until they're kind of trained out of it by school sometimes, or by the parent who says, no, it's not okay that you like this or that you want that.
Judgment. There's a lot of judgment. The judgment
Yeah,
starts to stack layers on top of little people.
right. And it erodes their trust in their own innate knowing. Not like, granted, children need to be brought up to know themselves. And, until they get old enough to kind of take good enough care of themselves, they do need parental guidance. But when I was growing up, parental guidance was, you can't do that. It's not okay that you want to be this when you grow up. And you need to do life this way.
Yeah.
And I may offend some people watching this, but the last couple of generations have, been so protected and, helicopter parented and hovering that, I work with young men that are in their early to mid 20s, and they don't know how to deal with conflict. They don't know how to be resilient. They really believe they don't know what they want. And I really believe that a lot of that is because we've gotten to a place where we want to protect our children, but in the way that it's being done, they're not learning how to fall down, fail, and get their ass back up on the horse and find out how strong and capable they can really be, and how to deal with the reality of life that will, in your entire lifetime, throw curveball after spitball after manure piles on your plan.
Yeah.
And if you don't know you, and if you don't have a central navigation system that is yours and yours alone to know if you're in integrity or if you're out of integrity with yourself, then you're a sheep. So the first thing I'd say is learn who you've been being that isn't really you. Decide if you're ready to get rid of that.
Yes.
And consciously cultivate, water, expand, grow the brilliance that you were born with, and trust your heart. That would be the other thing. Your heart, your intuition is dependable. Anything that this comes up with, for the most part, is not dependable. The mind lies to us every day.
Yes, and like you said, the parents or whoever it might be, the negative or the doubting or the judgment or the worry, all those voices, if you allow them to control you can just make your whole life collapse. And so I love that you're talking about developing that, what I also call the North Star within. You know, it's this the way to guide us. And that could be the heart, that could be the North Star, it could be the moral, I don't know if it's the moral compass, but a compass that just helps us make decisions. It's our own wise self. And it is difficult to keep those voices out. And that's the work that a good life coach or a relationship architect can do, is help a person keep out those voices. And I actually remember you saying, don't even go there, to me at one point. When I had that voice come out, you said, don't even go there. And I thought, what? How can I not go there? It's always there. I always go there. So it's breaking those habits of those voices that we grow up with, because they don't serve you. They sound smart, they sound clever, they sound real and true. So what? What's important is what you value here in your heart for your own well-being, and eventually I would think for the well-being of others. So right now we're going to take a quick pause and we'll be back. I wanted to welcome everyone back to part 3 of our interview series. This is on relationships, and my special guest is Geoff Laughton. I'm Jill Medina Elizalde, and this is the hub. That's what we call it. So welcome back again, Jeffrey. And so I wanted to start out. I'm going to look at my notes. I'm going to look down a little bit. Cheat sheet over here, or maybe to the side. So I wanted to start off with kind of an imaginary scenario where you have an individual who's they're ready to start dating. They're ready to start being in a relationship. They may have even started into a relationship. What is something that you would really want that person to know before they embark on this relationship that you feel like would be essential to the well-being of this relationship?
Sure. Well, the immediate 2 things that come right to mind. One is you have to know why you want a relationship. Because in my experience, people want companionship, they want sex, they want partnership at some level. But, I have found over the years that there are plenty of people who will reach out to me to help them with their relationship. And even if they've been in one for a while or a long time, when I ask them, why did you want one? Or why do you want one? Mm-hmm. A lot of them give me answers that to me just feel like, well, isn't that what you're supposed to do? Or, I'm lonely. Which in and of itself, I don't look at as the healthiest start to a relationship. Because if you're lonely and you're trying to fill the loneliness, you're already getting off on a needy, codependent foot. Mm-hmm. So you really need to know why. And another reason, not to sound unduly cynical about it, but the other thing is relationship is hard work. And anybody that's watching this, whoever has had the thought in your mind, shouldn't, this is really hard work. Maybe this isn't the right relationship. My opinion is if you're not having to work hard in your relationship isn't worth it. Because anything worthwhile takes work. Mm-hmm. And there are so many things built into a relationship that, just like our bodies or our cars, there's all kinds of stuff. When it's working right, it's awesome. And when stuff breaks down, not so awesome. So if you're really wanting to get in one, you want to understand that, beyond the honeymoon period, shit gets real. And you better be really, really clear that about what you're expecting, needing, wanting from one, so that A, when you're meeting people you might be attracted to, you have the beginnings of a conversation around, well, what has you interested in relationship? And the two of you can share that. I don't recommend that on the first, second, or third date, but it's something worth sharing. And then the other thing, the second thing that you should really be looking at is what kind of relationship do you want? So, real quickly, there's three kinds of relationships. One is a careful relationship, and that's one where both people get to walk on eggshells all the time and avoid conflict at all costs. That ringing a bell for any of you out there? I bet it is. The other one is a carefree relationship. And a carefree relationship, which in general, women tend to attract the careful ones, oddly enough. Men tend to be a bit more drawn towards the carefree one, which is let's have a good time. We enjoy being together. We're great in bed together. We don't need to deal with any of this serious or hard stuff. Let's just have a great time. Don't get so intense. Don't get, all this heavy conversation. Now, those first two are all well and good if that's really what you want. Though careful relationship means you're never going to get anywhere with any real depth and intimacy because you're too busy, looking for the eggshells. Which ones do I have to not step on now? And the carefree one just means that you have the depth of a, Nilla wafer and about as much excitement. And so you could have a great time, but what about all the rest of the days, weeks, months, and years? Because life isn't fun all the time. And if that's what you're going after, then you're missing an enormous amount of growth opportunity, which leads to the third type of relationship, which is a caring relationship. And a caring relationship is one where both partners consciously recognize that I really like growth, evolvement, transformation. And there are a few things around that I've discovered better than a relationship, parenting probably being the other one. But certainly being in a relationship is really probably the best sandbox for personal and spiritual growth that there is. So in that type of relationship, you're not generally trying to create a bunch of conflict, but you don't run from it. And whenever it comes up organically, in a caring relationship, you're both looking at the conflict, getting triggered, rough spots that every couple has, by the way. You look at that as, well, I don't like how it feels, but it's what I abbreviate as AFGO, another effing growth opportunity. Okay. So a caring relationship doesn't get tired of those.
Mm-hmm. Something I really wanted to know that I didn't interrupt you for, but I was thinking about that. Well, there's a couple of things that popped up as follow-up questions. So one would be this before you start your relationship, this is great. You said ask yourself why. So the person does that. They're asking themselves why. Um, and you really want to look at that. Like you said, if you're lonely, what's the reason? It's like there's work to do first with you. But is there some kind of little checklist that they should make for themselves? Like, okay, I've got all this in line and now I start my relationship. Or is it just like you just go for it and jump in, even, not all resolved?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're watching or listening to this and you're in between engagements, I think that it's worthwhile to ask yourself that question and, write down or journal or type up. I'm old school. I still like to write with a pen.
Yeah,
But to capture what comes up for you. And then what I didn't say that your comment just made me think about is also take a really, as bold and honest as you got the courage to be with yourself. What's my relationship with me like? How am I being with me? Where am I being loving with myself? Or where am I being spiteful and hateful with myself?
So what's the telltale sign to go forward? When do you know, like, okay, go, get in that relationship?
So in my opinion and in my experience, when you're looking for a relationship, in today's day and age, by and large, a lot of certainly younger people, they do the online dating thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personally, I guess that's better than the sharp stick in the eye, but digital familiarity is never going to replace human interaction, but it can be a clearinghouse, I guess. What I was going to say is, I know in my life, I was never successful at finding a relationship. Every single relationship I've ever had, including the one I have with Sarah, my wife, the relationships found me. Literally, all of my relationships were, to me at the time, total happenstance. And when I met Sarah, I wasn't even looking for a relationship. I was in one. And then I met her, and that changed the ballgame. So, but to answer your question, that was a bit of a digression or a tangent. I think when you do that homework and you're clear why, and you know what kind you're looking for, I believe that allows you to begin kind of sending a message out to the universe. Okay, I'm looking for this type, and I'm looking for these things by and large, and then live your life.
And let go of this whole thing. Yeah, you're saying not focus on it, just live your life. Focus on living your life.
Right. Yeah. Do you.
Yeah.
And if now this has been very hard during the pandemic, admittedly. So, I know people who have exhausted every online dating app there is. Mm-hmm. And they say, well, where am I going to find somebody? Well, now that our country is beginning to open up much more, go where the kind of people that you're looking for, including friends, by the way, because, when you're looking at what type of relationship do I want? Well, I'm a caring relationship type. And every single friendship I have centers around that. Mm-hmm. I don't have friends in my life that are careful or carefree. in terms of the relationship type. I do have friends that are kind of carefree and extroverted, right? But what I mean. So I think that if you want to start with dating apps, okay, that's fine. I do know some happy couples that met through online dating.
Yep.
But in the end, you can do stuff like that to kind of maybe get the ball rolling. But I think you're going to be far more successful if you're envisioning the kind of person and the kind of relationship and how it's going to feel to have one like the one you want. And also adding in, how do you want to show up in that relationship, and visualizing yourself being with your perfect partner, and what that might be like, and the kind of things. Doing an old journaling exercise that's been around forever. Journal your perfect day with your partner.
Yeah, it's like you're imbibing the whole experience, and before it's even come. And then I love the part about what I really like is that you can, just live your life, enjoy your life, and focus, because you don't want to waste those moments thinking about something that's in the future or in the past. Just be in the moment with those precious moments that you have, and live fully, and you can have that awareness of what you just said, like the experience of what kind of relationship, but it's not to focus on it solely and be driven by it, right? Like to be this thing, to have it pull you around or be driven by it. So, okay, so now we're going to jump into the next part. Let's say you're in a relationship and things are going along, and then all of a sudden you hit rough waters. So what kind of life preserver, since we're still going with the boat metaphor, relationship metaphor, what kind of life preserver would you recommend that they have on standby when you hit rough waters? Like, what kind of advice would you give them in those moments? Yeah.
Well, first of all, realize that most of the time when you hit rough waters, it's because you are run 95% of the time by mental and emotional patterns that were developed before you were even 8 years old. So most of the time we're operating from like an 8-year-old maturity level with an adult intellect. But in terms of triggers and landmines that we hit, when you step on one, it's probably partially, I'm not going to say it's the whole thing, but it's partially because you have stuff that hasn't healed from the past, that landmine just literally blew up to the surface. So to recognize that when you get triggered, most of the time, pardon me, most of the time, you're dealing with old stuff. And you want to look at what the triggering event or comment or action or lack thereof, what is that reminding you of from your past? And when you can look at that, that gives you some room to work with that, and then come into the present time. And now, what is the adult version of me? What's its problem? And so then the second thing to do before you try and work through it with your partner is look and see what's your piece of it. What are you responsible for? I remember going to a one-day seminar with Jack Canfield several years ago, and he made a suggestion along this line that I've stolen ever since, with credit, Jack.
Yeah.
If your partner is really being a shit to you. The question to ask yourself is, how am I being? How am I showing up that actually encourages my partner to be this way with me? Think about that for a second. Because the natural response is, well, you did this.
Okay. Yes. So I think that, yeah, so you want to take a good look at yourself. And what about those people that tend to, they see themselves and then they just start collapsing. Everything is their fault, you know, then they actually go the other way where they're like, everything is to blame. I mean, maybe that's the eggshell syndrome, but it's like this, you just collapse and then you can't get out of it. You know, you can't actually, what if, you know, there is something on the other side? I think that's where it takes courage, which is what you've taught me throughout the years, is like to stand up and say those things that I'm speaking for you, so I'm gonna let you speak.
Well, so, you know, when you go to that side of things, that's where you have to try, and sometimes you just have to cry, yell, move your energy and get back into present moment. Because when you go into that, oh my God, I can't do anything right, it's all my fault. Well, you've just been triggered into your particular flavor of your childhood wounding. So that means in that moment, you're not in the present. You've gone into Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine, and most people listening to this will not remember that cartoon. But
yeah.
It's hell getting older.
Yeah.
You're in the past. So one way to immediately disengage and get back into the present is to, and it takes practice to do this. Oh, I'm in the past. I'm beating up on myself. I'm shaming myself. I'm judging myself. The minute you can at least even notice that you're doing that to yourself, you're in the past. So get back, ground to your feet, feel your feet, take 2 or 3 minutes of slow, deep breaths. Where am I right now? I'm here, I'm in my office, I'm in my chair, I'm talking to Jill, I'm not back in 1964. And the minute we get present, and we even before that, you have this observation. We all have an observer, a part of us that's always just watching without judgment. Oh, look, you know, she said that, and you just did that, and then you threw this, and wow, that makes no sense, but okay. You know, so that part of us that can always observe what we're thinking and how we're behaving, that's your access out of it. Oh, okay. And then another thing that I like to do that's adapted from, now I'm blanking on her name. Well, it's a piece of work that's been around a long, long time, where the question to ask yourself is this real?
Is it Byron Katie?
Thank you. I had the B part. So this is derived from Byron's work.
Yeah.
So if I'm in a conversation with you and you said something and you hurt my feelings, and I'm going down that road of, oh, I suck, I can't ever get relationship right. If I notice this, then doing the question, the very first question in Byron's series of questions, is this real? Well, no, it's not. I'm sitting here feeling like I can't do anything in relationship right, though I'm noticing that I have a bunch of clients. I've been, you know, with my wife for almost 40 years. I have friends. I have people that love me. what in the living hell? I do just fine in relationships. For the very least, I'm no more fucked up than any other human being. So then I have a choice in being present to look at, okay, what am I upset about? I'm triggered. What part of me is triggered? How do I take care of that part? And then come back into my mature adult self, emotions, experience, and how do I want to handle this problem? So, in short, the answer to your question is keep doing your work. Because if you think you've got it all handled, you don't.
No, there's a lot to work on. And so I'm thinking about your background in neuro-linguistic programming. You're a master at that. And so I don't know if this fits, but I'm trying to figure out, like, there's a lot of work to do, and a lot of it involves thinking. And it's like you have these thoughts, and there's like this glitch between thoughts and action, and like making something, putting it into action, these kind of things. And I think you mentioned breathing was one thing. So because a lot of people can think, yeah, I understand this. Okay, I can, I'll be aware, I'll have the witness, but it's like to actually like do it. It's, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a way how you would accompany these kind of things with actions. And one way is breathing, getting yourself into that witness state and recognizing you're in that witness state is difficult. It's really hard to do. So how would you go about doing that?
It's only hard to do if you never try and you never practice. And one of the best, most reliable ways to learn how to be in your witness or observer is to meditate. I've been meditating for 25 years. I know the difference between my ego, yap, 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 and what my heart and what my spirit knows to be true. It doesn't mean I don't fall down and go boom. I still do. But it is a skill to be able to focus what you're putting your attention to. So really, my go-to to your question is emphasize daily practice, of which breath is one element. Getting in your body, paying close attention to your body. Because if if our lizard brain is going into fight, flight, or freeze, there are physiological sensations that tip us off. Fluttery stomach, anxiety, throat shuts down, heart's closed down, up in my head. And all of those have raw energetic components to them. So if you learn how to tune into your body, and, we all know what it feels like when our body's happy. We're relaxed, we're calm, maybe we're having an orgasm, that's a bonus. You've got to learn to be in this thing. Step one, get embodied. And then you can't really fully lose your way. At least that's been my experience.
Okay.
Cool. Oh, and one other thing?
Yeah.
Don't believe 98% of what you're thinking. And that is, I want to be very clear here. If you're an engineer and you're trying to design a bridge, yes, please believe 100% of what you're thinking.
Yeah, that's good.
This is a distinction between trusting knowledge versus all of the crap that every single one of our egos feed us all day long. I'm not enough. I didn't do that right. I'm not going to be able to do X, Y, Z. Those thoughts, those stories and narratives, don't believe 98% of them, because they're probably only accurate about 2% of the time.
Mm-hmm. And they usually make us feel bad, and that's going the wrong direction. So, yeah, that's good. Our bodies are so amazing how they can give us signals on everything, on what's going on. So, this is shifting our focus now to so I wanted to ask you your vision of an ideal world. I'm not sure if I touched on this in the other questions, but this is your ideal world in regards to relationships. And perhaps I did touch on this on the other questions. I can't remember. But I guess I like the idea of what this world would look like. So maybe just in a few sentences, what would your idea of ideal world where relationships were working and not working, but still working,
Heading in a better direction.
Yeah, a better relationship. Yeah.
Great question. Okay. So the very first thing that came up is it would be a world where relationships are grounded in truth and authenticity, where people are actually being their fullest and highest self, so that when inevitable conflicts do arise, for example, we're responding to them from our deepest truth and knowing about who we are and what's important, and that every other human being deserves to be treated accordingly, to be curious about who are they really and what's most important to them. And we both want and are committed to the same thing, which is people living and experiencing their life in harmony with their heart and their, I'll say, their essence. And that in that, conflict isn't going to go away, because we're human. Humans, we have our own inner conflicts every day of one sort or another. So it isn't about this utopic, warm and fuzzy Hallmark Channel version of life. It's just that life can't throw you, because you're connected to who you are, you're connected to your own spirit, you know your own heart, and you're unwilling to compromise any of it, but you're willing to compromise and work with other people for win-win solutions. And
I love it. I have to interrupt because there was something when you said life can't throw you. It just showed me like it goes back to the title of your book, Built to Last, Conflict Proof. It's like this really solid structure that you're building, this solid paradigm that you're building, this soul ship that you called it, earlier. You coined that term, and it's like, so and could you apply that? I cut you off, but I want to know, could you apply that to your relationships with others, but also your relationship with yourself?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we all have bad days. I had a particularly rough week last week for a few days, and I was going through some of what, stories in my head, I'm a jerk, or life isn't fair. My ego was just having a field day. And the thing was that even when I was going through something that really triggered days worth of feeling really, really thrown and in a lot of pain, I still had my observer firmly in place. So rather than just being at the effect of it all, I was actually every day making conscious choices to watch it, pay attention. I understand the parts of me that are triggered and they're young, and I'm going to be tender with those young parts. I'm going to go get help and get perspective from my closest friends, my therapist, and I'm going to work through it. There was never, not one moment, and this did not, by the way, used to be true for me at all. There was never one moment where I had a scintilla of doubt that I'm okay, I'm gonna be okay, this isn't gonna kill me, and it feels shitty. So what? That's life. So that's all about my relationship with me and my relationship with my mind and my ego, my relationship with the divine as I define that, and and having 60 some odd years of life experience that's taught me the difference between annoying, inconvenient, oh my God, and I am screwed. I know the differences between all those things.
Yeah, yeah.
So I never doubt that I'm going to get through even the worst things I can imagine happening. I mean, I guess I could be surprised if the worst imaginable thing happens, but which it will, I'm going to lose people. That happens. We all die.
Mhm.
So, but life has thrown all kinds of horrible things at me in my lifetime. And I'm here, and I'm actually better at this point in my life than I've ever been in every way.
Mm.
And part of it is because I refuse to quit or give up. So when it gets tough, knowing what your own toolkit is and having outside support, friends, women's group if you're a woman, men's group if you're a man, some level of spiritual practice if that is something important to you, teachers, coaches, none of us can do it alone.
Mhm.
So that's the other thing I've learned.
Mhm.
In the past, with what I was going through last week, the old me wouldn't have told anybody, probably, maybe one or two people. And I would have just sat in my cave trying to suffer through it or sort it out. I didn't do that. I asked for help immediately,
Mhm.
just to keep me grounded, get me back. All right, come back. It's not 1963 anymore. It's 2021.
Yes. You've told me before one of the key things that I've taken, one of the keys that I've taken throughout my life, is when these negative thoughts pop up, it's like, don't even go there. So don't go down that rabbit hole. I followed that advice and I think it's excellent. And as I was listening to you just now, I realized like you're built to last. It's almost like we're building ourselves to last. You, Geoff, have built yourself to last. In a sense, you've created a structure that is working. It's you have a way to find help if you need it. I mean, so many things are
Oh,
sustainable in your life. You are sustainability incarnate in a sense. So
yeah.
so what do you, this is my final question is, what do you love the most about being alive?
Love. Without that, life's not worth living. So I love that I get, I mean, the scenery is nice. At least where I live. I appreciate all that life has to offer, good, bad, and ugly. But in the end, being connected to my own heart and to my spiritual heart, and knowing that whatever's happening is an opportunity to get me closer to living this lifetime as the being that I am, that makes it all worth living. And a subset of that being connection. You know, I make my living helping people, and my friends I love connecting with. And, you know, Mother's Day having recently happened, being with my wife and celebrating her as a mother, and having our son and his wife over for brunch, and having my, you know, 6'3" little boy, you know, hearing a story I shared and just calling me over and giving me this big bear hug and really feeling me. And so relationships, love as found and shared in relationship, that's the shizzle.
Thank you, Geoff. And I see that what brings that love is your open heart, your generosity, your wisdom. I mean, everything that you've offered through your life since I've known you, which is over 25 years. I think that you're, in a sense, I think that anyone that meets you will feel that you are a source of love. So thank you for being that for the planet and for all the people that encounter you. We're really fortunate. And so thank you so much. I don't even want to end. I could keep going on and asking more. So I'm going to ask you back at another point in time. But thank you so much for being here on STEADFAST, and you're kicking off the series. And we're just, yeah, I'm so happy to have you. Thank you, Geoff.
You're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. See you soon.
Yep.
Goodbye to everybody out there. I'm going to put the view on and I'll say a proper goodbye. Goodbye. All right. Bye-bye.